What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. It's your weekly Nick Underhill sit-down where he gives you all the latest from the black and gold. And, well, it's a big one today, as it is 53 day. Going to decide who will be riding with this New Orleans Saints team into the regular season. And it comes off of a preseason game in which a lot of the borderline guys actually put their best foot forward. Who do you keep? Who do you leave behind? Let's break it all down with Nick Underhill of neworleans.football, where him, Mike Triplett, Bert Kirkhofer, and the whole team do some excellent work. Nick, what up, man?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you doing? Got to be a pretty insanely busy day. Any news to reveal thus far?
I mean, they made a couple of cuts last night. It's nothing major, like Jake Vargas, backup fullback. A couple other guys just way down on the frame, way down on the getting the fullbacks out of there early, man. It's an extinct position. But no, I mean, look, the big ones are all going to come today. I mean, I think the big decisions are, a kicker. Some of the stuff at safety, Lonnie Johnson or Jonathan Abram. I think Andrews Pete was kind of somebody that was, I thought in the crosshairs a little bit. I've heard he's gonna make the team, but I mean, you never know. That stuff does change, throughout the day. An opportunity comes up, something like that. It's always fluid. So I'm always reluctant to report those. But I mean, there's a handful of things circulating right now, but I really do think all eyes are on kicker. And if it were me, I would keep Will Lutz, but I'm feeling like that decision might go the other way. So we'll see how that one plays out.
Wow. Groupie may steal from that I would never have had coming into camp. What I'm going to ask you about an LSU guy because he played very well the other night, but I understand why. He was nowhere to be found on the 53-man projections on neworleans.football from Sunday, or excuse me, maybe Monday morning. And that's Jontre Kirkland, right? He seemed to make special teams plays. He was a constant outlet in that final preseason game offensively. Certainly, I think he's done enough where somebody in the NFL is probably going to roster him, give him a chance, perhaps on something along those lines. But you don't expect Kirkland to make that wide receiver room, do you?
Look, I think he's done what he could to make an impression, to make the practice squad, and I think he's a very good candidate for that area. But as far as taking a spot from somebody on the 53-man roster, I don't see where that would come from. You got Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Mike Thomas, those guys are locked in. I think A.T. Perry definitely makes the team. Yeah. And then, if they go to 5, it probably starts out Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith goes on IR. Then Keith Kirkwood comes back. I think Keith Kirkwood has earned a spot on this team. And then even just kind of keep going down. I think Shaq Davis is ahead of John Curry. But I do think that I don't think Shaq makes the team either. I'd be surprised if he's got a spot on the 53. I mean, it's just, when you're keeping somebody like that, you got to know exactly how they're going to help you this year. Like Marquez Callaway, when they kept him, it was a very clear special teams role, and then, grow into the contested catch guy the first year. And, I just don't see where Shaq fits into that vision where he's doing something that somebody else doesn't do. I think you got A.T. Perry. Jimmy Graham's a contested catch guy too. I just don't see the path for him. But yeah, I think Jontre, look, he impressed me. He was better than I thought he was going to be. When you're a late signing in camp, usually you aren't expecting a lot from those guys. Yeah. I thought he came in, made a mark. He looks really good with the ball in his hands. He's doing more at receiver than he has, throughout his career. So I think it's a good spot for him to get on the practice squad. I would keep him. I think he's somebody worth developing and then kind of seeing where he's at a year from now. But as far as it's the same thing. What would the vision be for him to come in and very clearly help the team? If they got better returners, they got a bunch of receivers that I think are a little bit ahead of him. So I think he just needs a little bit more time. But yeah, I think he's on a good trajectory. Yeah. And if it's not the Saints practice squad, I think it's somebody else's. I think he has a spot in the league this year.
Yeah, I agree with you there. What about returner? You mentioned it there. Rashid Shaheed, somebody that we assume is going to do some returning this year. Now he's going to be counted on in the offense as well, but he's been banged up. Can we see somebody else make this team to be the returner until he becomes fully healthy? Or, maybe he's a part of the offense where they don't want to put him in harm's way and put him back there. Where are you at right now in kick and punt returner?
So I think it probably is him, but the one guy that kind of they were using him back there, and every time he would get a chance to return, there's just guys that pop from that spot. And I like Alontae Taylor, they were using him back there a little bit. And every time he got the ball in his hands, it was just like, oh my God, he's fast, he's fluid. I could see him having a chance to do some stuff there. Ugo Amadi, I
Yeah.
think he's going to make the team. He was somebody that got some reps there too. So there's a handful of guys. I think Rashid's going to be ready for week one though. Like he's been back around. He's practicing a little bit. It looks like he's on the right path. And even when that injury happened, like we were told, hey, like there's no concern at all for week one. So I think he's going to be ready for it. And I think they do use him in that role. But yeah, there are a couple options there.
No Lynn
Taylor's
Bowden
role this year on the team is going to be, interesting overall too. Like they're looking into maybe if the right offer comes along to trade Bradley Roby. There was a report out there. I heard the same thing yesterday. So, I think if they get the right offer, they'd move him. And I could see Taylor, potentially being the starting slot corner week one if like the right offer comes for Bradley Roby.
Yeah, I feel like they've been pushing that or at least training him there for a while now. Nick, what about the tight end room? I don't hate to do it because that's what you do on 53-man day, but let's run it down because tight end room, obviously, with Taysom Hill factored in as some sort of pseudo tight end. Jimmy Graham really making a statement in preseason game number 3. We all know about Morrow and obviously Juwan Johnson. Who all makes it there?
Everybody you just named, I think they keep all 4 of them.
Wow.
I think they got a good mix of guys. I think they're going to be, a big part of the offense. It's kind of wild, like saying that too. Like when we were talking about this team, I don't know, March, April, Tuesday mornings on here is just kind of like, I don't know. Like, they've loaded up on receivers. Maybe we don't see as much 12 personnel as we've seen in the past. Maybe not as much 22. It might be, a little bit more spread out, whatever. And then, they just managed to piece together what I think is a pretty strong tight end room. And, Juwan's obviously, I think, going to be the star of that group. But I think Jimmy's been a little bit better than I expected him to be. Like, he came in those first couple days and, man, you guys aren't from the Northeast, but if people from the Northeast, like, we used to wear these, like, boots called lugs, and they weighed, like, it was like having a cinder block on your foot. And, like, when he first came in, it looked like he was kind of running with some, like, Timberlands or lugs on. And, like, just over time, like, his feet have just gotten, a little bit lighter, and he's moving better, and he's getting up a little bit more on some of these contested catches. And I think that's going to probably, continue a little bit. I think there's a limit on how athletic Jimmy Graham can look, but he's making those plays, contested catches, was doing it in practice leading into this game. He looked pretty good out in the LA practices. Like he definitely, I think I would go so far as, I think he's a lock to make the team, and I think he's a lock to contribute this year. Third down, short yardage, red zone, all that stuff. So I think he's going to have a decent role on this team. It might be 10 snaps a game or something, but they can be 10, 15 really valuable snaps. And, I think Foster's been really good. Taysom's going to do the Taysom things. And like I said, I think Juwan has a chance to be, like, coming out of camp, like, if you're, like, asking me to, like, do, like, the top 3 headlines, like, I think the comfort between Derek Carr and Juwan Johnson is one of those top 3 headlines. I think that he's going to have a chance to, put up some decent numbers this year. Yeah,
we've seen Derek Carr be very good with tight ends in the past. Nick, I know you're a journalist. I think that's where the J came from there. Something for you to look into. Jimmy Graham actually used to play basketball. I don't know if you
really?
Did you watch, like, when he posted that guy up in the end zone the other? I'm just something to explore. I want to write like a piece on it, so I want to tell you how to do your job, but just a little lead there. So Jimmy Graham, Jimmy Graham could be considered a pleasant surprise. Has there been a more pleasant surprise though than getting a late addition Jalen Smith, who again isn't going to start, but like kind of perfectly fills a depth concern that you had?
I can't believe like how ably they were able to just kind of smooth that out, because linebacker was my biggest concern, like right up until the day they signed him, and then you go out there and see him and it's just like, oh, all right, like him compared to the other depth, like it's just, there is a clear difference between him and everybody else. And yeah, I mean, I don't think he's starting or anything. I don't know, maybe he has a chance to, like, if they go, in base to start a game, like there's a chance he's out there at the Sam linebacker spot too. Like they were using him there the last few practices, so he might get some snaps there. But yeah, I think as far as like depth and everything, I'm amazed they were able to just kind of fill that spot so smoothly, like late into camp. Veteran guy. I mean, I don't think you want Jalen Smith exposed too much. If you can limit the exposure, use him in the right roles. Like I think he's a very good piece for this defense, and that alleviates, I think my top concern. My final 2, like there's no way to fix them unless, I don't know, they go trade for Barnett, who I guess is apparently available. But like I still think top end defensive end is a big concern for me. I like the rotation. I like the depth. I would just like one more like sure thing at that position. I don't know that they have it. Maybe they find the answer. And then the other one for me is left guard. Like if James Hurst is your starting left guard, I think he's a very good like depth player, a good journeyman player. Like he's stuck around, he's smart, he's solid. But if he's a starter on your line, like that's just a spot where I think you could be a little bit better. So I think those are my two areas of concern going into the season. But linebackers off that list.
Nick, what about running back? We know AK is going to be out there at the beginning of the season. What does it look like behind him? We know, Jamal Williams and Miller are going to make the squad. Who's that third running back?
Yeah.
I think it's Ellis Merriweather. I think he beats out Williams. I liked how he ran, all throughout. The one area of concern, I guess, like going into like I think you're limited in some of the AK stuff you could do if you go that direction the first 3 weeks of the season. I don't know if they would keep Kirk Merritt for those first 3 games just to get some of that versatility and maybe not limit your playbook. I don't know that you count on him for that, though, so maybe you just call your plays a different way. Kendre has shown more and more as a pass catcher. Like he's kind of like really come on later and later in the camp as it's gone on. Came out on like wheel routes and double moves and stuff. Like I'm surprised by his route running like this quickly, considering how limited he was there in college. But I think they just lean really heavily on Kendre and Jamal Williams. And, I'd say one thing, like us as a media, like we probably didn't do a good enough job talking about Jamal Williams throughout the summer because it's just kind of like, he's just been very solid running the ball. But, like, I like him a lot, and I like him more and more the more I see him. Like his burst kind of stands out a little bit. So, I mean, and he has some pass-catching ability, too. I just think you're probably limited there a little bit early in the season. But I kind of think Merriweather has a chance to make the team. Undrafted guy out of UMass, like, just been really solid throughout camp. Shout out to Brooke. Like, she spotted him in, like, OTAs before I even knew who he was. And she's like, I think he's going to make the team. And, like, it's just kind of built and built and built from that. And the thing I kind of like about him the most is, like, every single day between every single rep, like, he is just in Alvin's pocket. And, like, you just see Alvin, gesturing and, like, showing him how to do things. Like, so he's approaching it the right way, too. So he's kind of been a stand-up. If he doesn't make the team, I think he's an absolute practice squad guy. Maybe they use the standard elevation there to get him up there in those first 3 games.
A couple to close out here, Nick. Did you see enough from Trevor Penning this preseason?
Yes and no. I mean, there were signs of good things, and then, other areas where it's like he's got to clean this up. The thing I like about him, though, is like when you see something that he needs to clean up, you kind of see it get cleaned up a little bit. But the exposures just haven't been big enough to really know. Like in the last preseason game, I was a little bit worried about how he was getting beat by speed a little bit. He was having some trouble with the Chargers. Man, I can't think of his name, number 45. But he was getting them with speed a handful of times. So, like, there are things that I think he's going to have to get better at. And I think, I think you just got to hope that the guy he is in week 1 isn't the guy he is in week 17. Like, it's got to be week 18 now. I think it's somewhere he's going to have to keep making growth on the fly throughout the season. I do like the correction ability, but, that could be, maybe early on. It could be, a slight issue. So I think that is definitely something to keep an eye on.
Tuli Tupulitu is the guy's name, by the way.
Tuli Tupulitu. Okay.
If I'm pronouncing it right.
Nick, last one here, and then we'll let you go because I know it's a very business morning unless you got any left. Jake, I want to revisit Groupie Lutz real quick because I do find that just kind of glossed over it. Seems like you're maybe getting some whispers that Groupie's going to be the guy over Lutz. Why? Like how? Because I haven't seen any like large statistical difference here. Is it a money thing? Is it a lack of trust from last year with Lutz? Like why would it be Groupie over Lutz?
Yeah, I'm just let me phrase that the right way. Like I don't know that I'm hearing whispers on it. It's just something that I kind of get a feeling that it's not like a sure thing in the incumbent's direction yet. Which, if you're going into the last day of it and it's still a little bit up in the air, it's kind of like the other guy's making it hard, and you could end up in that type of decision. So I'm not going to be surprised if it goes Groupie's direction. Like I said, I would go Lutz every day of the week. I mean,
so that's my point, though. Sorry to interrupt, but like the question remains. So, like, what do you think they're seeing? Like, how has Groupie positioned himself even to be in that conversation then?
Groupie's been a beast, man. He hasn't done anything to lose it, and he's younger. He's definitely one of the best 32 kickers walking the earth right now. And, if you got one of those guys and your guy isn't one of the top 10, I think you just have to look at it and say, all right, like it can be really hard to end up with one of these guys. And man, Saints fans know that. How long did it take them to get to Lutz? You know, it was like a decade in the desert, wandering looking for an oasis, and all you found was mirages. Like at some point, like if you have one of these guys in your building and he's much younger, and the incumbent missed the season with an injury, and then had a shaky season coming back, and you got a young guy that's just kind of really confident, hasn't done anything to lose the job. Is taking advantage of every opportunity except the 60-yarder. I think that is a conversation that has to go down to the wire just out of respect for it. And, I don't think money's ever an issue with the Saints, and I don't think money should ever dictate a decision at kicker. We're talking about like saving $1 million if you let go of Lutz. But look, if you got a young guy who is cheaper, who is, you're confident in his ability and everything, it's something that you have to like seriously consider. And, like I said, I would keep Lutz just because I like the situation the team's in. You kind of know what he is. You know what the absolute floor is on him, I think. And they're kind of in a position where I don't think they can take risks. Like I would be doing everything like very, very like, okay, like I'm minimizing my downsides here, but there is significant upside potentially with keeping the rookie kicker who looks like he probably is one of the 32 best walking the earth.
Nick Underhill, neworleans.football is the site. You're not going to find a better place for all of your Saints coverage. I'm a proud subscriber. I've been for a couple of years. I'd recommend you go check it out as well. Any deals or anything going down at the start of the season, Nick?
Yeah, 20% off until kickoff week 1 with the code 2023 kickoff.
There you go. Code 2023 kickoff, neworleans.football site. Nick, thank you so much. Now, get back to work. Go report.
Have a good one, guys.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.